I never gave dating apps much attention since they usually seemed like a waste of embarrassing time. Dead-end small talk or worse, being ghosted after a few messages. But I was bored and my friends insisted that I put myself out there, so I thought I'd make a profile, add a few good photos, and fill in the basic information about my profession, hobbies, and favorite foods. A few days in, I matched with a man called Evan who appeared typical and secure. His images were basic, including one at the gym and another with a dog, and his profile was straightforward: coffee addict dog, coffee guy. Let's avoid the small conversation, Dad. Evan's initial communication to me did throw up alarms, but nothing else did. I was wondering when we would eventually match, so I frowned at the computer and wrote back, "Oh, we've crossed paths before." It took him a few minutes to answer, "Evan, not exactly, but I see you a lot. You're kind of a creature of habit," which made my stomach knot. I took a while before responding. "Evan, what do you mean? You consistently go to the gym on 8th Street Monday through Friday after work, and you always have a vanilla latte at the same cafe before work." I became cold. I reviewed the messages again before adding that information on my profile. Something about the way he said it, the assurance in his words as if he knew for sure, made my skin crawl. My fingers lingering over the keyboard must have been a joke, right? Perhaps he simply assumed. Perhaps he was a regular at the same locations and recognized me. "That's rather particular, Evan," and I had myself respond. "Do we know each other? Although it's not official, I feel like I know you." That statement is weighing heavily on my chest in my email, with no explanation or follow-up. I took a deep breath and locked my phone. Perhaps I was overreacting, or perhaps it was nothing, but as I sat in my apartment looking at my screen in the dim light, I noticed something else. My last name was missing from my dating app profile. How could he have found me online even if he had recognized me from the gym or cafe? I told myself that I didn't feel like going for my normal coffee run the next morning and that I would instead get something at work. But in reality, I didn't want to face the danger of bumping into him by lunch since my curiosity had gotten the better of me. After I didn't reply, I reopened the app, half expecting him to have unpaired me, but instead he had a fresh message ready. I was hesitant to open it, but when I did, my heart fell. I read it again. I hadn't gone to the cafe that morning, and I hadn't informed anybody that I was altering my pattern, but he was aware of it and was keeping track. My hands were clammy as I typed out a response that said, "Are you following me?" I regretted sending it because as soon as I hit send, the typing bubble appeared and then vanished. I clenched my jaw and waited until the message finally appeared. "Evan, you're being dramatic. It's just observation." My heart was racing because I felt like I was a project that he was studying, and I had to stop this. I blocked him, closed the app, and tried to get rid of the feeling that I had just made a mistake because blocking him should have been the end of it. That's how it's supposed to work, right? You block someone, and they disappear from your life, no messages or contact, but Evan didn't disappear that night. Even though I had blocked Evan on the dating app, I had a new message request from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, thinking that blocking me wouldn't change anything. My stomach dropped, and I stared at the screen with my pulse thudding in my ears. I had barely slept, and every sound in my apartment made me jump, including the hum of the refrigerator, the distant honking from the street below, and the occasional creak from the hallway outside. I told myself that I was being paranoid, that I was allowing a stranger from a dating app to enter my head. How did Evan get my number when I never gave it to him? I turned off my phone because this was so strange and dangerous. I needed to talk to someone, maybe the police. But what would I say that a guy from a dating app knew my schedule and texted me after I blocked him? It wasn't illegal, creepy, and definitely stalkerish, but not enough for them to take seriously. If I had learned anything from watching too many true crime stories, it was that you have to have proof before anyone listens. That day, I decided to try something new. Instead of going to work at my usual time, I left an hour later, taking a different street, and instead of getting coffee at the Grind, I went to a place across town. I kept looking over my shoulder the entire time, but for the first time in days, there was no sign of him. Maybe he had been bluffing, maybe he wasn't really watching me. I let my phone fall. He was aware that he had been observing me, therefore my hands grew cold. After a minute, Evan was the only person who paid attention, so I clenched my jaw and chest tightly in fear that he would leave me alone or call the police. I forced myself to breathe while gripping the edge of my kitchen counter, and my stomach twisted as I stared at my phone, my mind racing. I needed to end this. I thought he would stand back and see how serious I was, but instead he sent me a message that chilled me to the bone. I stumbled back, my heart racing, and rushed to the window, pulling the blinds open as I saw a picture of my apartment building taken from the street directly below my window. The street was almost deserted, with no sign of him, but the message was clear. He was here, watching, waiting, and he wasn't going anywhere. I slammed the blinds shut, my heart hammering in my ears. This wasn't just creepy anymore. It wasn't just unsettling messages or a guy knowing too much about my schedule. Evan was outside my apartment. I made myself think that I needed to do something, and calling the police was the obvious option. However, what would I say if I had matched with someone online and he was now threatening me vaguely, saying that he knew my routine and had somehow found my number? They would probably tell me that it wasn't enough to take any action, but the photo showed that it was proof. Reaching for my phone, I phoned 911. I tried to regulate my breathing by pressing the phone to my ear with wet palms. 911, what emergency do you have? My voice trembled as I added, I have a stalker. He matched me with someone on a dating app and is now messaging me from outside my apartment, threatening me directly. I didn't exactly hesitate, but he emailed me a picture of himself observing me from just outside my building. I told the dispatcher your address, and she assured me that an officer was on his way. Stay inside and keep your doors locked, she added, and then hung up. I gripped my phone tightly. With my stomach in knots, I had shut my door. As I tiptoed near the front door, double-checking the lock and the peephole, I felt a rush of frigid panic. The hallway was empty, so I took a step back to settle my breathing and tell myself that the cops would arrive soon. I had to wait, but suddenly my phone buzzed with another message. I didn't want to look or find out, but did you truly believe the police could assist you? A new surge of fear swept over me. My whole body went cold as I stared at the screen, wondering how he knew the dispatcher had just sent a unit. He couldn't have possibly received another text because they always take too long. I thought I was going to get sick, so I grabbed the kitchen knife because that was the only thing I could think to do. I backed into the living room, keeping my eyes on the door every second. Then there was a knock, and I almost dropped the knife. There were 3 gentle, purposeful knocks on my front door, and I held my breath until I heard a voice that was familiar, but it wasn't from my phone or messages from somewhere else. I moved my heart closer to my neck. "Evan," I said. Silence, then a chuckle. "See, I told you I'd pay attention." I staggered backward, clutching the knife as tightly as I could with my knuckles. How long had he been this close? How long had he been inside my building without my knowledge? I could hear his slow, patient breathing through the door. He wasn't in a hurry because he knew he had me trapped. Then, a distant wail of police sirens broke the stillness, and I turned toward the window, hope fluttering in my chest. When the police arrived, I told them everything, the messages, the photos, and the way he knew my schedule down to the smallest details, and they took it seriously for once. However, Evan was gone. There was no sign of him in the building, no security footage of him entering. It was as if he had never been there at all. I knew better, so I changed everything. After that, I moved apartments, changed jobs, got a new number, deleted all of my social media accounts, stopped using dating apps, and for weeks, I hardly slept in anticipation of another text or message. Another picture demonstrating that Evan had located me again, but it never materialized, and I still don't feel secure because Evan was meticulous, had everything planned, and spoke to me through the door that evening as though he had done this before, was still watching, and would do it again.